Welcome to Lesson 2, Overcoming Scope Creep. Now in our last lesson, we sorted out how to build a fee that actually makes sense for your business. Of course, in architecture, one thing is almost inevitable. Even the most carefully calculated fees can disappear in a flash when scope creep enters the picture. Truthfully, scope creep is one of those phases that we all know, but what does it actually mean in practice? Simply, it's when the work quietly mushrooms beyond what was originally agreed, without a corresponding friendly nudge to the fee. Research shows an eye-watering number of architectural projects are hit by scope creep. So if your workload ever feels heavier than it should, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're tackling this profit thief head on. And by the end of this lesson, you'll be equipped with a clear way to define project boundaries, practical strategies for spotting scope changes early, and proven scripts for handling scope requests professionally, and systems so you're actually paid for the work you do. Radical, I know. Let's start by understanding why scope creep feels like it was designed especially for architects. Now, unlike many professions, we architects, we run projects full of moving parts and people and decisions stretched out for months or even years. And it's fertile ground for scope to sneak up on you. Now, I learned this lesson painfully on a family home extension in my early years as a principal. Lovely clients, lots of excitement, a straightforward brief, or so I thought. What started as just a few options for the kitchen quickly spiraled into revision after revision. Could you just rotate the island again? Let's look at one more door arrangement. I kept obliging, not wanting to upset anyone. But by planning submission, we churned out nearly 3 times the design work we'd allowed for. And I'd effectively given myself a 40% pay cut. Now, repeated over enough projects, this was a big factor in my very first practice running aground. Now, this experience isn't unique. The data says that on average, projects see 17 to 22% more work creep in than originally scoped. Now, only a quarter of this extra work is actually reflected in additional fees, and every uncompensated quick change chips 2 or 3 percentage points off your profit. Scope sneakily manifests in 3 ways. There's little asks that stack up, there are requests from planning, building control, or outside parties, and there's client evolution, the classic. Those light bulb moments the client has when they say, "Now that I see it," or "What if we..." Now, the danger is that each tweak seems harmless, just 20 minutes here, half an hour there, until you realize you've handed over an extra week of your life for free. Before we get onto the fixes, let's spot the early signals that scope creep is coming for you. Now, trust me, these warnings can save you thousands of pounds and at least as many headaches. Now, if your client's wishes are fuzzier than a builder's coffee mug, beware. Research says poorly defined briefs lead to 40% more scope changes. We've all had clients overflowing with just one more idea. Wonderful for creativity, catastrophic if boundaries aren't gently set. If their wish list is for a grand design's mansion, but their budget screams cottage, will just buckle up for a bumpy ride when compromise is needed later. Now, don't panic if you spot these traits. They aren't deal breakers. It just means you'll need strong systems from day one. After my own scope-related disasters, I became a student of how big firms nailed this down. Moving into project management at a multinational, and later with award-winning practices in Munich, I saw some brilliant, simple techniques. Now, one firm stood out. Before any creative work, they presented a crystal clear scope document, listing precisely how many design options, how often meetings would be, and a formal process for changes. Now, as a client, it was a breath of fresh air. So why does this work? Well, because clients want clarity, even more than they want endless extras. Ambiguity makes everybody anxious. Now let's make that practical. So here are 3 strategies. First, the detailed scope document. Yeah, I know, more paperwork, but it's a lifesaver. List all deliverables, including formats, limits, spell out what's not included, note design iteration limits, define meeting frequency, feedback deadlines, and how changes are handled. Firms doing this see 43% less unpaid extra work. Second, the phase-gated approach. Divide the project into clear phases. Each phase ends with a sign-off and a payment. Changes after sign-off trigger a new fee. And then third, there's options frameworks. Now the base fee includes a set number of options. Further explorations, absolutely, at clearly set rates. This turns scope drift into extra billable services. Now remember, these boundaries aren't barriers to creativity, they just keep the game fair for everyone. Now my first attempts at managing change requests were, let's say, not exactly a masterclass, but after watching real pros at work, especially in my time on the client side, I learned a few painless professional tricks. The best firms take every request in their stride. They explain the adjustments needed, they outline the impact on time and cost, they present options, and they confirm it all in writing, so nobody's left guessing. Not only does this protect your fee, it actually boosts respect. The protocol is to react positively, such as, great suggestion, let me explore that for you. Estimate the added work and the timeline and explain clearly, we can do this in X ways and here's what it involves, and always document decisions. Email is your friend. How you say it matters. Instead of saying, I'll quickly look at it for you, try saying, that's an additional direction outside our agreement. I can prepare a mini proposal for this as an extra service. Now this isn't being awkward, it's being professional, and more importantly, sustainable for your practice. Here's what I learned from the slickest organizations. Systems are your friends. First, the change log. Keep a running record of every change request. Date, details, estimated time, agreed extra fee, and of course invoice status. And share it with your clients. Next, incremental billing. Bill for approved changes as soon as they're agreed, not months later. Now, bite-sized invoices are much less painful and keep cash flow steady. There's also regular scope reviews. Hold short, dedicated meetings purely to review scope. This helps everyone stay honest and keep surprises off the final bill. Firms doing this report collecting 91% of extra fees. That's almost a British miracle. Now ultimately, keeping things transparent builds trust. If you show your workings, clients know you're fair and arguments become rare. Let's get practical. So here's a quick roadmap for putting this into action. This week, review existing project agreements. Where are you exposed? Update your scope template. Start a change log for every live job. Prep standard language for change requests. Next month, schedule scope review check-ins on major projects. Set up gates between project phases for new work. Draft a simple change order template. And bring your team on board. No more lone rangers. Now in the long run, refine your approach based on what actually works. Track which project types or clients are most likely to stretch the scope, and bake scope management into your practice's DNA. Now doing this isn't about being a stickler. It's about running a genuinely client-focused business where everyone knows where they stand from day one. Today we've covered why scope creep is especially tricky for architects, the early warning signs and how to spot them, creating project boundaries that actually work, handling change requests with confidence, and building systems to make sure that you're properly paid. Now it's time to put all this into action. Download the Scope Protection Toolkit. It's packed with templates for scope docs, phase gate guides, a ready-to-use changelog, and scripts for those awkward conversations. Don't move on without having a go at the worksheet. In our next lesson, we'll look at practical wins that you can use straight away to give your bottom line a real boost. Mastering scope isn't about being difficult, it's about respecting your own values and your clients. Now, I've seen the difference. When architects are clear and confident on scope, everyone sleeps better at night. Now, my goal, as always, is to help you build a practice where you can thrive in business and life, delivering quality work and enjoying the journey.